welcome back to another episode of Reboot. And in fact, this really isn't a new episode, it's a remake of a previous video I made where I asked ChatGPT about the border dispute, the history, and shared culture that exists between Cambodia and Thailand, or Thailand and Cambodia. So this is a remake, and some of you pointed out that my previous video was very biased in terms of the questions that I was asking ChatGPT, and I agree 100%. It's quite difficult when you've lived in a country for so long and built a deep respect for the culture, the traditions, the people, the values, to be unbiased. But I'm going to really try in this video. So we'll start that part again, and we'll ask ChatGPT some open questions around the history and the dispute. And then I thought it would be quite interesting to dive into the part that the media is playing in fueling tension, fueling hostility, fueling the anger that we see from both sides online. So we'll dive into that a little bit further. And yeah, hopefully this will be a more unbiased approach. And I would love your comments just to see if I've got it right this time. So thank you, and I will see you in the next one. ChatGPT, are you there? Oh, push the button. Hello, ChatGPT, are you there?
I'm definitely here. Feel free to ask me anything you need.
Great. So let's. I want to dive into the Cambodia, Thailand, Cambodia border dispute. Is that okay?
Absolutely. That's perfectly fine. We can dive right back into that border dispute and cover whatever details you need. Just let me know what angle you want to take.
Okay, so let's have a look first at the law as an objective standard. Why is international law the fairest and most impartial framework for resolving border disputes between nations?
Sure. International law is really considered the fairest and most impartial framework because it's built on agreed upon rules that all states have signed up to. It's not about one country's politics or emotions, it's about neutral principles and treaties that everyone has agreed to follow. So when there's a border dispute, international law provides a common standard that's fair to both sides. It helps ensure that the outcome is based on legal facts and not just whoever has more power or louder arguments.
Okay, and how does the International Court of Justice ensure that decisions are based on evidence, treaties, and legal principles rather than emotion and politics?
Absolutely. The International Court of Justice makes sure its decisions are based on evidence, treaties, and legal principles by following a judicial process that's really all about the facts. Both sides present their arguments, submit documents, and refer to international treaties or past agreements. The judges are impartial and they examine all that material carefully, making their rulings based on what the law does rather than any political pressure. That way the ICJ keeps things fair and ensures that the outcome is rooted in law, not in emotion or politics.
Okay, and why is it essential that both Cambodia and Thailand as UN member states respect the binding authority of the ICJ's rulings to maintain international credibility?
Well, it's essential because when both Cambodia and Thailand respect the ICJ's rulings, it shows they're committed to the rule of law and the international system. Basically, it helps maintain credibility and trust among nations. If countries just ignore the ICJ, it would undermine the entire legal framework that helps keep international relations stable. By following the rulings, both countries show they're responsible members of the international community, which strengthens their own standing and helps ensure peaceful resolutions to disputes.
And what risks arise when countries ignore or reinterpret legally binding treaties and judgments for political convenience?
Well, when countries ignore or reinterpret legally binding treaties and judgments just for political convenience, it can really undermine the whole system of international law. Essentially, it sets a precedent that agreements and court rulings don't have to be followed, which can lead to more conflicts and instability. Other nations might also start doing the same, and that makes it harder to resolve disputes peacefully. In short, it weakens trust in international agreements and can lead to a breakdown in the international order, making the world a less predictable and more contentious place.
Okay, so let's go specifically then into this Thai-Cambodia, Cambodian-Thai border dispute and look at the legal foundations. So next question, under the 1907 Franco-Siam Treaty, what was the legally agreed boundary between Cambodia, then under French protection, and Siam, now Thailand?
Absolutely. Under the 1907 Franco-Siam Treaty, the legally agreed boundary between Cambodia, which was then under French protection, and Siam, now Thailand, was defined by a series of maps drawn up by Joint Commission. One of the key pieces of that boundary was the Annex 1 map. This placed the Preah Vihear temple on the Cambodian side of the border, and both parties accepted that at the time. So the treaty and the map together legally established the boundary line, which the International Court of Justice later relied on in its rulings.
And what is the legal status of the Annex 1 map under international law?
Legally speaking, the Annex 1 map has a very solid status under international law because it was recognized and accepted by both Cambodia and Thailand, then Siam, at the time it was created. The International Court of Justice later used this map as a key piece of evidence in its 1962 ruling, affirming that the border shown on the map was legally binding. Because Thailand didn't object to the map for many decades, it became authoritative reference for determining the boundary. So under international law, the Annex 1 map is considered a legally valid and binding document that sets out the agreed boundary.
And how did the International Court of Justice rule in 1962 regarding sovereignty over the Preah Vihear temple?
In 1962, the International Court of Justice ruled that the Preah Vihear temple was under Cambodian sovereignty. The court found that according to the Annex 1 map and the 1907 treaty arrangements, the temple was on the Cambodian side of the boundary. Since Thailand had accepted the map and the boundary line it showed for many years, the court concluded that the temple belonged to Cambodia. So the 1962 ruling essentially confirmed Cambodia's sovereignty over Preah Vihear, and that's been the legal position ever since.
And back in 1962, did Thailand comply immediately with the ICJ judgment ordering withdrawal of Thai forces from the temple area?
Legally speaking, no. Thailand did not immediately comply with the 1962 ICJ judgment. While the court ordered Thailand to withdraw its forces from the temple area so that Cambodia could exercise sovereignty, it took some time and diplomatic pressure before Thailand fully complied. Eventually they did comply with the ruling, but it wasn't an immediate or instantaneous withdrawal. This delay is often noted in discussions about the implementation of that judgment.
Okay, so let's look at subsequent legal actions. What prompted Cambodia to seek clarification from the ICJ in 2011 to 2013?
Absolutely. Cambodia sought clarification from the ICJ in 2011 because there were still disputes about the surrounding area of the Preah Vihear temple. While the 1962 ruling had confirmed the temple itself was Cambodian, the exact extent of the surrounding territory wasn't entirely clear, and tensions had flared up. Cambodia asked the ICJ to clarify the scope of the original judgment to ensure that the area around the temple was also recognized as Cambodian territory. In 2013, the ICJ issued a clarification that reaffirmed that the vicinity of the temple was indeed Cambodian. So the prompt for seeking clarification was essentially to resolve those lingering ambiguities and prevent further conflict.
And what are the binding obligations under Article 94 of the UN Charter concerning ICJ rulings?
Absolutely. Under Article 94 of the UN Charter, all member states are obligated to comply with any decisions of the International Court of Justice in cases to which they are parties. That means if the ICJ rules on a dispute, the countries involved are legally bound to follow that ruling. If a country does not comply, the issue can be taken to the US Security Council, which can then decide on measures to give effect to the judgment. In other words, Article 94 ensures that ICJ rulings have real legal weight, and that member states have a binding obligation to respect them.
And are both Cambodia and Thailand member states of the UN?
Yes, exactly. Both Cambodia and Thailand are member states of the United Nations, so Article 94 of the UN Charter applies directly to them. That means they are both legally obligated to comply with any ICJ rulings in their disputes. So when the ICJ makes a decision, both Cambodia and Thailand have a binding obligation to follow it, which is part of their responsibility as UN member states.
And has Cambodia fully complied with all ICJ judgments on this matter?
Yes. From a legal standpoint, Cambodia has fully complied with the ICJ judgments on this matter. After the 1962 ruling, Cambodia respected the court's decision and exercised its sovereignty over the Preah Vihear temple area as recognized by the ICJ. Similarly, when the court provided clarification in 2013, Cambodia followed that clarification as well. In other words, Cambodia has acted in accordance with the ICJ's rulings and fulfilled its obligations under international law.
And has Thailand fully complied with both the 1962 and 2013 ICJ rulings?
Legally speaking, Thailand's compliance has been more of a mixed picture. After the 1962 ICJ ruling, Thailand did eventually withdraw from the Preah Vihear temple area, but it wasn't immediate and there was some delay. As for the 2013 clarification, there have been ongoing tensions and some disputes over the surrounding areas, and Thailand has not always fully aligned with the spirit of the ruling. In short, while Thailand has taken steps toward compliance, it hasn't been as complete or as straightforward as Cambodia's compliance has been.
Okay, so let's now have a look at treaty and map legitimacy. So under international law, can a state unilaterally reinterpret a boundary fixed by a bilateral treaty and recognised map?
Under international law, a state cannot unilaterally reinterpret a boundary that has already been fixed by bilateral treaty and recognized by both parties. Once both states have agreed to a boundary and it's been formalized in a treaty and recognized on an official map, that boundary is legally binding. Any changes would require mutual agreement or a new treaty. So in the context of the Thai-Cambodian border dispute, Thailand can't simply reinterpret the boundary on its own. The original treaty and recognized map are what count legally.
And what is the legal consequence when a state accepts and uses a boundary map for decades without formal protest?
Well, legally, if a state accepts and uses a boundary map for many decades without lodging any formal protest, it essentially reinforces the legitimacy of that boundary. In international law, this concept is often tied to the principle of acquiescence or estoppel. In other words, by not objecting, the state is seen as having accepted that boundary as the legal status quo. This makes it much harder for that state to later claim that the boundary is incorrect. So the legal consequence is that the boundary becomes even more firmly established and recognized in international law.
And how does the principle of estoppel apply to Thailand's historical acceptance of the Annex I map?
Sure. The principle of estoppel basically means that if a country has, over a long period of time, accepted a certain boundary without objection, it can't suddenly turn around and dispute that boundary. In the case of Thailand and the Annex I map, Thailand used and accepted the map for decades without any formal protest. Because of that long history of acceptance, under the principle of estoppel, Thailand is legally prevented from going back and arguing that the boundary is wrong. In other words, Thailand's historical acceptance of the map means it's bound by it, and it can't legally claim otherwise now.
And what role does effective control play once a sovereignty has been judicially decided?
Sure. Once sovereignty has been judicially decided, like by the ICJ, effective control doesn't override that legal ruling. In other words, even if a state tries to physically control or occupy an area, that doesn't change the legally established sovereignty. The law remains that the territory belongs to the state that was awarded sovereignty by the court. So while effective control might create tensions or practical issues on the ground, it doesn't have legal weight in overturning a judicial decision on sovereignty. The legal ruling stands, and the state that was granted sovereignty retains the legal right to that territory.
And can military occupation alter a boundary that has been legally determined?
No. Military occupation can't legally alter a boundary that's already been determined by an international ruling or treaty. Even if one country occupies an area by force, that doesn't change the legal status of the boundary. International law still recognizes the boundary that was legally established, and the occupying state is expected to withdraw and respect that legal boundary. So while military occupation might cause temporary changes on the ground, it doesn't have the power to legally redefine an internationally recognized country.
Okay, so let's look at compliance and conduct. Which country has adhered to the ICJ's judicial mechanisms to resolve the dispute?
Legally speaking, it's Cambodia that has adhered to the ICJ's judicial mechanisms to resolve the dispute. Cambodia brought the original case to the ICJ back in the late 1950s, and then returned to the court in 2011 to seek clarification. In other words, Cambodia consistently used the ICJ as the proper legal channel to resolve the dispute, rather than taking unilateral actions. So from a legal standpoint, Cambodia has been the country that has followed the ICJ's judicial mechanisms to handle the aid.
And which country has acted in accordance with the UN Charter's requirement for peaceful dispute settlement?
Legally speaking, Cambodia has been the country that has acted more in accordance with the UN Charter's requirement for peaceful dispute settlement. The UN Charter emphasizes resolving international disputes by peaceful means, including through judicial bodies like the ICJ. Cambodia brought the matter to the ICJ and followed the court's rulings, which aligns with the UN's principles of peaceful resolution. In contrast, Thailand has sometimes taken actions that have led to tensions rather than strictly relying on peaceful legal avenues. So from a legal perspective, Cambodia has been more in line with the UN Charter's requirements for peaceful dispute settlement.
And which country has relied on legal petitions and court rulings rather than military measures to assert its claim?
Legally speaking, it's Cambodia that has relied on legal petitions and court rulings rather than military measures to assert its claim. Cambodia brought the dispute to the ICJ and sought legal resolutions through the court rather than through force. In contrast, Thailand has at times used military presence in the disputed areas, which has led to tensions. So from a legal standpoint, Cambodia has been the party that has primarily used the legal and judicial route to assert its territorial claims.
Okay, and how does Thailand's continued occupation of areas shown on the Annex 1 map as Cambodian align with international law?
Legally speaking, Thailand's continued occupation of areas that the Annex 1 map shows as Cambodian does not align with international law. According to the ICJ's rulings and the recognized legal boundary, those areas are part of Cambodian territory. That means that any continued occupation by Thailand is a violation of the legal rulings that recognize those areas as belonging to Cambodia. In other words, under international law, Thailand should respect the established boundary and withdraw on those areas. So their continued occupation is not in line with the legal standards set by the ICJ.
And how does Cambodia's conduct demonstrate compliance with both treaty law and international judicial rulings?
Well, legally speaking, Cambodia's conduct demonstrates compliance because it has consistently followed both the treaty law established by the 1907 agreement and the international judicial rulings of the ICJ. After the ICJ ruled in 1962, Cambodia respected that decision and exercised its sovereignty over the Vihear temple area. Similarly, when the ICJ provided clarification in 2013, Cambodia followed that as well. In other words, Cambodia has shown that it respects both the treaty-based boundary and the rulings of the ICJ, which is how it demonstrates compliance with international law.
Okay, so let's just have a dig into disputed territories and map alignment. So according to the Annex 1 map, on which side of the boundary do Preah Vihear and its surrounding lands fall on?
According to the Annex 1 map, Preah Vihear and its surrounding lands fall on the Cambodian side of the boundary. The map clearly places the temple in the adjacent area within Cambodian territory. This was a key point in the ICJ's 1962 ruling, which confirmed that the temple was on the Cambodian side of the border, as shown by the Annex 1 map. So legally and cartographically, the Preah Vihear temple area is on the Cambodian side.
Okay, and which side of the 1907 boundary do the villages Ban Nong Chan and Bang Nong Ya Kiao appear on?
Legally speaking, according to the 1907 boundary and the Annex 1 map, the villages of Ban Nong Chan and Ban Nong Ya Kiao also appear on the Cambodian side of the border. The map and the treaty place these villages within Cambodian territory, and that was part of the boundary that was recognized at the time. So from a legal and historical perspective, those villages are on the Cambodian side of the 1907 boundary.
And do any areas currently administered by Thailand fall on the Cambodian side of the Annex 1 map?
Yes, from a legal standpoint, there are indeed areas currently administered by Thailand that fall on the Cambodian side of the Annex 1 map. This has been part of the ongoing dispute. The ICJ rulings confirmed that certain territories, including the vicinity around Preah Vihear, are legally Cambodian, even though Thailand has maintained administrative control in some of those areas. So yes, there are places currently administered by Thailand that, according to the Annex 1 map and international rulings, are actually on the Cambodian side.
And has the ICJ ever recognized any portion of the Preah Vihear vicinity as legally belonging to Thailand?
Legally speaking, no. The ICJ has never recognized any portion of the Preah Vihear vicinity as legally belonging to Thailand. In its 1962 ruling, the ICJ determined that the temple and the surrounding area were on the Cambodian side of the border. The court's decision was based on the Annex 1 map, which showed the temple in Cambodian territory. The 2013 clarification by the ICJ reaffirmed this, and at no point did the court allocate any part of the temple vicinity to Thailand. So in short, the ICJ has consistently recognized the area as Cambodian and not Thai.
And what is the legal status of Thai border markers or posts placed contrary to the Annex 1 map line?
Legally speaking, any Thai border markers or posts that have been placed contrary to the Annex 1 map line don't have legitimate legal standing under international law. The ICJ rulings rely on the Annex 1 map as the authoritative boundary, so any markers placed by Thailand that don't align with that boundary are not legally recognized. In other words, those markers don't change the legal border and have no legal force in redefining the territory. Essentially, the legally recognized boundary is the one on the Annex 1 map, and any Thai markers that contradict it are invalid.
And what is the legal status of Thai border markers or posts placed contrary to the Annex 1 map line?
Legally speaking, Thai border markers or posts placed contrary to the Annex 1 map don't have legitimate legal standing. The ICJ has recognized the Annex 1 map as the authoritative document for the boundary, so any Thai markers that don't align with that boundary aren't legally recognized. In other words, those markers have no legal effect on the established border. The legally binding border remains the one set by the Annex 1 map, and any markers placed by Thailand that contradict it are not valid under international law.
And how do modern Thai military maps compare with the Annex 1 map in defining the legal boundary?
Legally speaking, modern Thai military maps that differ from the Annex 1 map don't change the legal boundary that has been established under international law. The ICJ relied on the Annex 1 map as the authoritative source for the boundary, so any newer maps produced unilaterally by Thailand that show a different line don't have legal standing. In other words, the legal boundary remains the one that was recognized by the ICJ, based on the Annex 1 map, and any discrepancies in modern Thai maps don't alter that legal fact.
And which territories remain under de facto Thai control but are de jure Cambodian according to ICJ rulings?
Legally speaking, the territories around the Preah Vihear temple area are the most notable example. According to the ICJ rulings, these areas are de jure Cambodian, meaning they legally belong to Cambodia. However, parts of that area have remained under de facto Thai control, meaning Thailand has administered or occupied them in practice. This ongoing situation was part of the dispute, as the legal rulings have confirmed the area as Cambodian territory, but Thailand still exerts control over some portions on the ground.
Okay, and can Thailand, under international law, claim ownership of any land on the Cambodian side of the Annex 1 map after the ICJ reaffirmations of 1962 and 2013?
Legally speaking, no. Under international law, Thailand cannot claim ownership of land on the Cambodian side of the Annex 1 map after the ICJ reaffirmations. The ICJ rulings in 1962 and 2013 made it clear that the territory, including the Preah Vihear temple area and surrounding land on that side of the map, belongs to Cambodia. Therefore, Thailand has no legal basis to claim ownership of that land. The international boundary established by the ICJ is legally binding, and Thailand is obligated to respect it.
Okay, so let's just dive into this last section. Conscious that we've taken quite a bit of time, but if we look at cultural legitimacy and historical continuity now in this next section. Who built the Preah Vihear temple and under which civilization was it constructed?
Absolutely. The Preah Vihear temple was built by the Khmer civilization, and it was constructed during the period of the Khmer Empire, which was centered in what is now Cambodia. The temple dates back to the first half of the 11th century, although it was significantly added to in the 12th century. It was dedicated to the Hindu god Shiva and is a proud example of Khmer architecture. So culturally and historically, Preah Vihear is very much a product of the Khmer civilization, which is the historical predecessor of modern Cambodia.
And what language and architectural style are the temple's inscriptions and carvings written in?
The inscriptions and carvings of Preah Vihear are in the ancient Khmer language and are done in a distinct Khmer architectural style. The temple is a classic example of Khmer architecture, much like what you'd find at Angkor Wat and other Khmer temples. The carvings and inscriptions reflect the religious and cultural traditions of the Khmer Empire, and the language used is Old Khmer, which is the direct ancestor of the modern Khmer language spoken in Cambodia today.
And how do UNESCO's heritage designations describe the cultural identity of the Preah Vihear temple?
Well, UNESCO's heritage designations recognize the Preah Vihear temple as a masterpiece of Khmer architecture and part of Cambodia's cultural heritage. They describe it as an outstanding example of Khmer architecture from the 11th and 12th centuries, emphasizing its historical and cultural significance to the Khmer civilization. So in UNESCO's view, the temple is firmly part of Cambodia's heritage and is recognized as a key piece of Khmer cultural identity.
And what evidence links the Preah Vihear temple complex to other Khmer monuments such as Angkor Wat?
Absolutely. There's quite a bit of evidence linking Preah Vihear to other Khmer monuments like Angkor Wat. For one, the architectural style is distinctly Khmer, with similar motifs, construction techniques, and religious iconography. Both Preah Vihear and Angkor Wat were built during the height of the Khmer Empire and were dedicated to Hindu deities, reflecting the same cultural and religious influences. Inscriptions and artistic styles found in Preah Vihear are similar to those at Angkor Wat and other Khmer sites, which shows a shared cultural heritage. Essentially, Preah Vihear is part of the same architectural and cultural tradition that produced Angkor Wat, linking them both as monuments of the Khmer Empire.
And have any Thai-era artifacts or inscriptions ever been found at the site?
Legally speaking, and from a historical perspective, no Thai-era artifacts or inscriptions have been found at the Preah Vihear site. The temple's inscriptions and artifacts are all from the Khmer period, reflecting the cultural and religious context of the Khmer Empire. There's no historical evidence that the site was associated with Thai culture or that any Thai artifacts were present there. So the temple's historical and cultural identity is entirely Khmer, and there's no archaeological evidence of a Thai-era presence at the site.
And which modern nation-state is the direct cultural and linguistic descendant of the Khmer?
Legally and culturally speaking, a modern nation-state that is the direct cultural and linguistic descendant of the Khmer Empire is Cambodia. The Khmer Empire was centered in what is now Cambodia, and the modern Khmer language is directly descended from the language of the Khmer Empire. Culturally, the traditions, architecture, and heritage of the Khmer Empire are carried on in Cambodia today. So Cambodia is the modern heir to the Khmer Empire.
And how does the recognition of Khmer heritage by international bodies reinforce Cambodia's legitimate cultural claim to these sites?
Well, when international bodies like UNESCO recognize Khmer heritage, it really reinforces Cambodia's legitimate cultural claim to these sites because it acknowledges that these monuments are part of Cambodia's historical and cultural legacy. By affirming that sites like Preah Vihear are part of the Khmer heritage, these organizations are supporting Cambodia's cultural continuity and its rightful custodianship of these historical sites. So it adds another layer of international validation to Cambodia's cultural and historical ties to these temples.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, ChatGPT.
You're very welcome. I'm glad I could help. If you need anything else, just let me know.
Great, will do. Thank you. So that's a little bit about the legal framework of the border dispute between Thailand and Cambodia, Cambodia and Thailand. In the next section, we'll dive into the media narratives to see how that has played a part in the ongoing dispute. Okay, so welcome back. And for this next section, what I wanted to do is have a look at some of the media reporting that we're seeing going on in Thailand and Cambodia about this border conflict, and see how the narrative is different and what each side is focusing on in terms of its media reporting. So I'm going to throw a couple of images on screen now. And this is a snapshot of all of the most recent media reports from Thailand, and then we'll go into the Cambodian one, just as a backdrop. And I uploaded these documents to ChatGPT, just this snapshot, which it read. And I'm going to ask it again some questions on media framing, just so that we can see what the difference is. So bear with me just 1 second. I will get ChatGPT online again. So let's see. ChatGPT, are you there?
Absolutely. I'm here and listening. Just let me know what else you need.
Okay, so I've uploaded 2 documents to you. Can you tell me what those documents are?
It looks like I had a little hiccup there trying to check the documents directly, but if you let me know a bit about what those documents are or the file names, I can help you from there. Okay. Feel free to just give me a quick hint.
Let me upload them to you again, so bear with me 1 second. Hang on. Okay. Sorry, bear with me just 1 second. I'm just uploading these documents again. So let me just go back. Okay. So ChatGPT, can you see the documents that I've just uploaded? And can you just say briefly what they are?
Yes, I can see them now. In brief, the first image is a collage of Cambodian media coverage, specifically from the Khmer Times, focusing on diplomatic efforts, international law references, and peace processes regarding the Cambodia-Thailand border situation. The second image is a collage of Thai media coverage from The Nation, which is more focused on military posture, national sovereignty rhetoric, and internal political messaging related to the same border issues. In short, you have one document showing Cambodian media framing and the other showing Thai media framing, which together highlight the contrasting narratives we've been discussing.
Okay, so let's just ask some questions then on media framing. How do Thai and Cambodian outlets choose which aspects of the broader situation to emphasize: military action, diplomacy, or humanitarian progress?
Sure, let's jump right into that. When you look at how the Thai and Cambodian outlets make their editorial choices, it essentially comes down to their respective audiences and political contexts. Thai outlets are generally emphasizing military action and sovereignty because that resonates with a sense of national pride and strength for their domestic audience. It's a way of showing that the government and military are in control and defending the nation. On the other hand, Cambodian outlets are focusing on diplomacy, international law, and humanitarian efforts because that aligns with their narrative of being the reasonable, law-abiding party that's seeking a peaceful resolution. For them, it's about demonstrating legitimacy on the global stage. In short, each side emphasizes the aspects that best serve their national narrative and political goals, whether that's military strength or diplomatic legitimacy.
Okay, so, and to what extent do either side's journalists reference international law, treaties, or court rulings when covering the border issues?
In a nutshell, the Cambodian side's journalists reference international law, treaties, and court rulings quite a lot. They frequently mention the ICJ decisions, the original treaties, and they frame their coverage around the idea that they're following these legal precedents. On the Thai side, there's a lot less mention of international law or treaties. Instead, the focus is more on sovereignty in a national sense and less on those international rulings. So overall, the Cambodian reporting is a lot more grounded in referencing international law, while the Thai reporting tends to rely more on a domestic perspective.
Okay, and which historical treaties or court decisions do you think, based on our discussions, are most relevant to the current dispute, and how are they represented or omitted in each country's coverage?
Absolutely. So the most relevant historic treaties and court decisions here are mainly the 1907 Franco-Siamese Treaty and the 1962 International Court of Justice ruling, plus the 2013 ICJ clarification. These are the legal backbones that determined that the Preah temple area, for example, falls under Cambodian sovereignty. In Cambodian coverage, these treaties and rulings are front and center. They're represented as the fundamental legal facts that justify Cambodia's position. In Thai coverage, on the other hand, these legal points are often downplayed or omitted. The focus is more on current sovereignty claims rather than historical legal decisions, so those treaties and rulings are not highlighted. In other words, Cambodia's media leans heavily on these historical legal documents to validate their stance, while Thai media tends to leave them out of the narrative.
And how are joint activities such as demining, prisoner of war releases, or peace dialogues portrayed differently in each country's media?
Absolutely, let's break that down. In Cambodian media, these joint activities like demining operations, POW releases, and peace talks are generally portrayed as steps toward a lawful and peaceful resolution. The tone is often about cooperation and fulfilling international obligations. It's a way of showing that Cambodia is committed to peaceful and humanitarian actions and is working within a legal and diplomatic framework. On the Thai side, these same activities are often framed in a more guarded or even reluctant light. For instance, POW releases might be shown as conditional or tied to Thailand's demands, and peace dialogues might be portrayed as something Thailand is doing from a position of strength rather than mutual cooperation. In essence, Cambodia's media presents these joint efforts as collaborative and legally grounded, while Thai media frames them more as strategic or secondary to the larger theme of sovereignty and national interest.
And let's just talk about public perception and impact from these types of news stories. How do you think these contrasting narratives influence public opinion and national identity within each country?
Absolutely, let's get into that. So these contrasting narratives really shape how people in each country see themselves and the other side. On the Thai side, the media's emphasis on sovereignty and military strength tends to foster a strong national identity rooted in pride and resilience. It can lead to a more defensive or even distrustful view of Cambodia, as people see their country as having to stand firm against external pressure. In Cambodia, the narrative focused on law and diplomacy creates a sense of moral high ground. People may feel that their country is the reasonable actor following international norms, which can lead to a sense of being misunderstood or unfairly treated by Thailand. It can also reinforce a national identity based on being the more legally justified party. In both cases, these contrasting stories can deepen the divide in public opinion, making it harder for people on either side to see the situation from a neutral. I'm sorry, but you've hit the daily limit for advanced voice.
Okay, so that's it for ChatGPT's analysis of these media reports. But yeah, I thought it was really interesting, and I thought it was interesting for a couple of reasons. How one side chooses to focus on negative stories related to the border, and the other is very much focused on positive, peaceful resolution. I think that's indicative to a degree of what we're seeing played out on social media, and the hostility that I see from both sides towards each other. And I understand, based on what ChatGPT has just said, that it's when you have a group of people who have been told repeatedly that these territories are Thai sovereign lands, and the international law says differently. I can understand why there is a conflict that exists between both parties. So I really hope that was a more balanced approach to the conversation and getting ChatGPT involved to cut through some of the noise when it comes to what's going on at the border and the very obvious polar extremes of each different side. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and as ever, comments in the comments box below, and I very much look forward to catching you in the next one. Thank you, thank you, thank you.